Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Radio Inquisition. My name is Erik Nagel. Today, we're going to speak to an old friend of mine, Jeff Hurley. He's currently an executive vice president of programming for iHeartMedia. But before that, he was a radio DJ. He was in radio programming. He was going town to town, up and down the dial, as the old saying goes. We also went to college together. So we'll see what stories he has from our time together back then in the long, long ago. I'm not sure his specific chain of command because it is a giant corporation. Look, he could have the ability to promote the show, give us new affiliates, a better platform. He could also probably put an end to all of this if it doesn't go well. Or, maybe he has no power to do anything whatsoever. We'll just have to wait and see how this goes. So, now with all that being said, please do us a kindness and give us a listen because my pal, Jeff Hurley, is coming up next.
Radio Inquisition. Erik Nagel's Radio Inquisition.
Here with an old pal. I haven't seen you in so many years, Mr. Jeff Hurley from iHeartMedia, Executive Vice President of Programming. That was like a couple years ago that you got bumped up, right?
Yeah, back in January of 2020. And it's been calm ever since then, obviously. It's 6 weeks before the pandemic. Got promoted.
That was a weird time because that fall to the end of the year of 2019, there was some big layoffs. And then all of a sudden in January, it's like, oh, well, these people got moved up. And you're like, well, I'm happy for those people, but I'm also upset for the people I used to work with. They're all gone.
It was a different time. I mean, I coming into that job in 2020, we had no idea what was coming ahead of us, and
big things this year. This is going to be the best year ever. 3 months into it.
There was a great meme that was out. Like everybody was like, "My God!" Like Taco Tuesday and Cinco de Mayo, and they're all on Saturday. 2020 is going to be the best party year ever, and
it just all fell apart.
All fell apart.
I remember the one. I forgot the exact date, but there was one day in March. We're on air and we're doing a show, and then I'm seeing stuff coming in over the news wires, and I go, hockey just suspended the rest of their season. What? No, that can't be right. Yeah, I know, I can't, but I checked some other sources. It's all over. Oh, wait, Major League Baseball's now postponing spring training and then opening day. And, oh, my God, Live Nation's canceling all their concerts in the United States. Oh, wait, now it's worldwide. Like, it just, minute by minute, something kept coming in. And you're looking at, like, what is happening? How did why is everything falling apart?
That's one of the visceral moments of our generation. Like, we all remember where we were when we realized the pandemic, like, it was hitting the fan. Like, you'd heard things. I was driving through upstate New York, me and the division president that I work closely with. We have all these markets, and we're driving from Albany, New York. We had driven in the night before, met with the markets, done all our stuff that we were doing, and we're in the car driving home, and it's about a 4-hour drive down from there. And he's watching his email in the seat next to me, and he's just like, I don't get this. What? And I can hear him kind of like, going through the emails and speaking out loud, and he starts cursing. He's just getting more and more angry. He's like, everything. And it was just like that. His daughter, I think, went to Ohio State. They had canceled, and boom, boom, boom. So that stretch from like Albany to Binghamton is where I watched the pandemic like really hit us. And by the time we got home that night, everything was just completely shutting down. And, the governor was saying, I remember the press conference and all that. So that was like one of the weird things. I'm there in a rental car somewhere outside of like Olean, New York, or Binghamton, New York, and that's where it happened.
The day I started to really suspect something was up wasn't even the day when all that stuff started closing. So the week before was a Tuesday. I came home from work. I'm late, eating dinner and just sitting there. It's about 8 o'clock, watching the news, and we had been hearing for at least a week at that point, people were talking about gloves and masks, right? That was the big thing. And they had some government official on talking about this, and then he just mentions, just very out of the blue, and he's like, you get your mask, your hand sanitizer, the gloves, and toilet paper, but didn't explain it. And I just looked at my wife, and we looked at each other and go, toilet paper? I'm like, should I go get something now? And she's like, yeah, go. So I just went up to Target and just got the jumbo pack thing, right? Brought it home. not knowing that the next day all these places were being ransacked like a blizzard was coming, when all the food's gone. So all this was happening. Then like a day, I think it was the next day, all of a sudden everything started closing one by one, and then this was just the rest of the show. We're just reading off stuff. Well, let's see what comes in the next few minutes. Oh, this is closing down. Oh, this is stopped. Oh, schools are letting everything out. Oh, officially by the state of New York, we're not allowed to be at work on Monday. We all have to be remote, and not everybody was ready to be remote. Like like we're in the media company, so we kind of had a bit of an advantage by having some of the equipment or having people that knew how to do some of this stuff at home. But a lot of companies didn't have anything ready. Like they didn't know, like Zoom wasn't a thing. I mean, it was there, but nobody really knew it or used it until like a week into this. Mm-hmm. And I remember at iHeart, they had these, in New York, they had these, they looked like the nuclear football. Like it was big black cases with everybody's name on it. And in there was like a little roadster board, a microphone, a mini laptop, and saying you're going to connect here for like all the national and the syndicated stuff out of New York got their stuff first, and some of the local stuff. Like it was just all being divvied out. That lobby looked like if you ever go on a cruise where they lay out all your luggage and you're just walking through aisles trying to find and match your ticket to the bag, and you're like, how is this going to work? And then lo and behold, here we are. Now we're in a world where most people still aren't back. Like they're there at the studio 2 days a week, and then they do everything else from home.
Think about how crazy that was. I remember that week we sat there and you were kind of figuring out on the fly how to do live radio shows without going to a station. And we had some technical things that we already knew and we were working on. But like you say, I mean, you had markets where people still didn't have cell phones with half the time. Some of these talent were like on a flip phone and like, what do I do? And it was like just getting everything. It was the most triage from the standpoint of just getting the broadcast on the air the right way for those first couple days especially were tough. But once you got into a groove with it, people got really good at it. And again, I missed out on the on-air part. I had come off the air not long before that. And that's the one thing I didn't get to really experience was doing a radio show in my pajamas from home.
But you got to do everything else in your pajamas from home.
Oh, yeah,
only
absolutely.
That if you didn't wake up and do something, it was actually more detrimental than if, all right, I was like 10 minutes late to my shift. People aren't going to work. They're not going to hear it in the 7 o'clock hour. One last question about this thing, and then we'll get into about you and your career and your life and all that. When all this was going down, were you amazed at the amount of people that you thought might have had home studios? Like people have been in this business for, decades. Mm-hmm. And when this hit, they had nothing. Like they didn't have anything at home. They didn't know how to broadcast from their house. Some did. Like I was amazed at the ones that did because they had decent setups or professional studios been in their house. But I was also floored at the amount of talent and high price talent too that didn't have anything set up at a residence or a remote area and didn't know what to do. The biggest thing I saw was Howard Stern, who you would think he's been in this business forever. He would have stuff at home. He had nothing. For 2 days, they were just doing essentially like the laptop camera and speaking into the laptop for his show for 2 days. And you're like, how does he not have anything at all? Like that it just kind of, it really opened up a lot of eyes to this industry. It's like, oh my God, these people know what they're doing and they do it well. But they also, on the other hand, they don't know what to do if they're not sitting in a room where it's all set for them.
But again, before January of 2020, none of us really had to worry about that. Having a home studio, that was like an absolute luxury. And some of us would like build out little things here and there. But even then, it was like, yeah, I've got a microphone that I put into an old 528E processor that I stole from the production room, and it was like wired into a bad access or something. It was like they had home studios, but very few people actually had the ability to sit in their bedroom and do a legitimate show. And that's where, like you say, we found out pretty quickly that a lot of people didn't have stuff. We also figured out who stole all the equipment over the past few years, and they'd be like, no, I have this beautiful studio. And like, wait, that's where all the stuff went.
Can you just take that out of the rack mount there? Let me see the sticker on the back.
Yeah, show me the barcode.
Yeah.
I'm missing a few. There's like 5 RE20s over here that no one has seen for 5 years.
I have the purchase order, but I have an empty studio here, so let's just take a look.
Yeah.
Jeff and I have known each other since like 96 from college. We went to the same college together, and Jeff was actually my general manager at the college radio station.
96. I can't believe it's been, 20 years now at this point, basically? It just seems, I don't want to do the math.
26?
26 years. Let's not think about that because I don't feel old.
Yeah, 26 years old. 26 years since we first met. I've been really feeling it lately, the age. Not so much me like physically feeling it, but just seeing things pop up. When I started to see 100-year anniversary stuff come, like with World War I's 100th anniversary, and I just said, oh my God, the next 40 years, 50 years is just all going to be 100th anniversary of television starting, big radio shows happening, big movies happening, like going all through the 40s, 50s, 60s, 100 years since the Beatles came to the United States. Like, oh my God.
We had something a couple weeks back where it was like they said your birth year is actually closer to World War II than it is to the current day, and it just that's like a stabbing pain in the heart, right? Like, because that's a lot. I'm like, World War II is ancient. That's black and white on History Channel.
And it's not even the most popular war. People rarely. It's something that they're filling on the late night weekends on the History Channel. Like, oh yeah, we got some World War I stuff. It's always World War II.
I know it's painful, but this business at least it keeps us young. I think, at least mentally. I mean, maybe not so much physically, but this business does help keep us younger than some.
No, it does. It's all different facets of people on the air. Some people have like insane music knowledge. They know everything about not just a band and their history, but they know songs, where they charted, when they charted. They know album covers. They know producers. Like, there's people that are just, you sit there and such a savant, and you go, I don't know if I'm scared of this person or if I'm in awe of this person for how much these people know. And then you got the other side of radio where the talk. So you got people that know politics inside and out, no matter what position, what side, what official, everything going back to the beginning of time. Sports talk people who know everything, not just by their local teams in their city, but the national statistics. All this radio people know a lot of, I guess, stuff that doesn't mean anything outside of radio, but if you're listening to it, it's like, this is what I want to hear. This is the stuff I need.
I would host a call. I do, market calls and region calls with my guys, and we would do the upstate New York call. Had a couple of really just legendary programmers. John Cooper, who's been with Pix in Albany for a long, long time. And then Joe Bonadonna, who a lot of people from Philly remember. And Joe's back at ZZO with us now, but he was up in Rochester. And the two of them are just, they would hold up album covers and they would quiz the rest of us on who these album, and it would be deep cut, like, oh, I found this in the bin. This is the UK import of blah. And it's like, and the two of them would go back and forth about it because that's just their world. They knew it. And the rest of us sat there like, is this a Backstreet Boys album? I don't know, guys. That's outside my comfort zone.
Do you need me here? Can I just go to the bathroom real quick while you do this, and then we'll try to resume this meeting? Radio does keep you young. I have this weird knack of just, I know a little about everything. I don't know a lot about one thing, but I know a little about everything. And then I have just a useless catalog of references and callbacks to things, and it helps out of the blue. Somebody will say something, a phrase triggers a thought or whatever, and I throw that out there, and it's a little weird when people are like, how did you even pull that, or how did you even remember that? And I go, I don't know. I guess
you found the only field in the world where this actually helps pay the bills. That skill does not pay except for trivia night anyplace else.
I get free wings and I get paid. But I don't know math. And I can't figure out my taxes, but I can tell you who was the entire roster of the 1986 World Champion Mets. But that's it. That's the only way I can fake sports, because I'm like, oh, what happened? It's like, I don't know. I gave up on baseball after that. We went to school. Jeff was the general manager. What year did you graduate? You were like a year or two ahead of me, right?
I'm 98, so
we're 2 years ahead of me. All right. I doubt you'll remember any of this stuff, but do you remember anything about me or my show when I was there?
I remember there was a lot, actually. You were really one of the guys who came in and I'm not trying to blow smoke here but you came in and you kind of knew what you were doing with a lot of, like, you were good at this stuff, and you had some strange connection with the Bloodhound Gang, and I don't remember where that came from.
Right.
I don't know if it was your brother or you knew them or something, but you had that connection and you would play that kind of stuff, and you just had that vibe about you. I remember you very well from then. In individual conversations and stuff, we probably can't recall anything.
No.
There was a million reasons why.
No.
But I remember really clearly working with you.
Yeah, I also, to this day, for a guy who does talk radio and stuff for a living, I've been told I talk too much. So I've always tried to curb that. Mm-hmm. But look, friends with Kevin Smith, he made a life out of never stop talking. So there's something to it.
Exactly.
So you were doing college. You actually helped me get into a station. I think it was as you were leaving. There was a station in Binghamton called Wink 106.
Yep, that's where I did mornings there with another two people. I was a part of the show. Yep.
I went there one day, and you showed me the studio, and there was I'll never forget this. There was the prize wheel, an actual prize wheel in there. Yep. And I said, oh, so they really do it? And you go, no, it's just for legal reasons. And so if they say, oh, is there really? Yes, there was one right here. But It was all, sound effects with the roulette thing. And, everything was determined by, oh, there's a guy on the phone. Let's just give it to him.
Like it was the birthday wheel, the legendary birthday wheel. They might still do it. I don't know, but that was in the studio right as you walked in. And we actually did use it sometimes. Like we would use it to, because the thing is, if you'd spun it on the air and it completely kept going, you would never, but we would randomize whatever the birthday was going to be that we were spinning that day. So it was completely legal for any lawyers listening. It was legal. It's fine. People got their $25 gift card to.
No, everything was on the up and up, but it was like that thing physically had to be there.
It sat there.
And I was like, wow, that I didn't realize that. But
the pressure when you were 20, by the way, this is one of my first real radio gigs, was the pressure that when they would say, all right, you're doing afternoons today. That meant I have to do the birthday wheel, and we did it live. And so it was like, oh gosh, I've got to hit the sound effect and I've got to pick the day and I can't screw this up with the live caller because none of it was taped back then. And I mean, when you're like 19, 20 years old and you're like heart's pounding through your chest trying to get it right.
I got to give you credit because you kind of taught me that when I was going to school, I was just like, all right, I need to learn production. I need to learn all this stuff. I need to do the broadcasting classes, marketing, all of that stuff. But you taught me that I was like, wait, I can work while I'm doing this. Like that, everybody was working while they were, in some shape or form, unless they were really well off, was working while they were going to school. But it didn't dawn on me until after I met you and you were doing these stations. I was like, oh, I can adjust my school schedule to do this and then work at other times at radio stations. So then I started doing that. For some reason, it's a no-brainer now, but coming into college that first year, it's like I didn't think about that, and then saw you doing that thing at Wig, and I was just like, oh, I'm allowed to do this now. Get out of the high school mindset. It's like, oh, I can do other things while doing this. And
I remember doing, I was in Introduction to Audio Production, or one of those classes, like a entry-level 101, and the professor at one point is like, listen, you're on the radio in the morning, you're doing a 4-hour live show, you don't need to submit this project. This is, you're good on this one. Just give me an air check tape.
Yeah.
It was like, and that's what all it was, is like, go do a radio show for 15 minutes and do your production. Go make a commercial. And so it was like, I'm doing this at work. Can I just bring it in? Yeah, it's fine, whatever. And that was great.
In my later college years, I was working at WLIR in Long Island. Mm-hmm. So I did that, and then I got something that was supposed to go to WNEW in New York, and some other things. So it got to the point towards the end, I'm like, look, I'm doing these things now.
Yep.
Do I really need to do these other classes? Not that I wouldn't, but does it make sense for me to come and do those classes when I'm already about to be offered full-time here? Do I still need to do this? And they're like, well, yeah, you kind of have to if you want to. And I go, well, all right, then I guess I don't really need this. And they're like, all right, we'll work it, because they want their money. So It's like, all right, yeah, we'll work some out. So that last year was like, it didn't really need to be there. I didn't even go to walk. Like, they'll just mail it to me. I'm done. I'm good. I'm ready to go. So you were from the Erie, PA area, right?
No, I'm actually from near Mansfield, where we went to college. So I was like a town over is Troy.
Why did I think you were from Erie?
I lived there for a while. I did Erie for a while.
Oh, okay.
And I still have a warm, soft spot in my heart for Erie. I love that city. But I was from outside near Elmira, actually, up near on the border there, and I went to Troy, and then I went to Mansfield.
All right, so you leave school. Where do you go for, like, where does your career start? You were doing the mornings at Wink, but where do you go from there?
So after college, I still wanted to do at the end of college, I wanted to do an internship. So I went to Rochester. I had applied to a couple different places, and Rochester was the one that it just worked out for. So I went up there. But the same thing as college, I actually worked at the station I was interning at. So I would go in and do my internship, 20, 30 hours a week where I'd be at the station and do the promotions and all the stuff that you did as an intern back then. And then I would have weekend shifts, and I would do remotes, and I would do and so.
What station in Rochester were you at?
I was at PXY,
okay,
98 PXY, and then WZNE was the other station. We had 4 stations in the cluster, so I was doing like shifts on ZNE. I was doing PXY, and I would help out. CMF was in the building at the time, and
that was the big station there.
What Weeze was on that station at the time. Now he's come across to AIO since then, but that was really me getting thrown into like real radio. Not to say that what we were doing in Elmira and Troy and all these things wasn't real, but that real, like when you step out and you see, okay, this is what it's, someone like Weeze, who's just a Hall of Fame legend, and you see this big 6-person morning show, and you see a part of a 3-person or a 4-person show where you just kind of jump in the deep end, and it was a great experience because you intern there and you just got, again, this was the late 90s, so it wasn't the same now where you're kind of basically a glorified shadow in a lot of your internships and you can't do anything. They were just like, yeah, go do like 40 hours of work and we're not going to pay you. You get credit, whatever. It was like, it was your internship.
Isn't it a little disheartening because we were dealing with it when we were still doing Opie and Anthony at Sirius XM. Mm-hmm. We started to see the internship program sort of collapse, not just before it even got to us. It was, I think it was like Condé Nast had a problem, and then Sony had a problem or something, like where these people were just complaining that they wanted to be salaried or paid, and while they were doing the internship, and in a way I understand that, but it was causing such a ruckus that a lot of these corporations just go, well, then we're just going to eliminate the program altogether. Mm-hmm. And then like we were down to 1 intern for our department, and they were very limited on their hours. They had to check in and check out. They couldn't hang out. That was part of one of the perks, I guess, of being an unpaid intern, is that you got to hang out at these stations and you get to shadow the people who were like the engineers, learning how they do and fix the equipment, or the production guys learning how they do the voice imaging and the commercials, and the traffic department how they schedule. Like you get to go bounce to between department and department and see all of this stuff. Now it's like you only here for 4 hours, you have to leave. Like they're watching the clock and kicking you out the door.
Yeah, and I understand why we have to do it. I completely get that, and from a legal standpoint especially. But yeah, you got such a unique experience because it was just like you would just be there all the time. And I would get up in the morning when I lived in Rochester, and I didn't have to be at the station till like 6 o'clock at night for the show or whatever. I would just go in at like 2 or 3 in the afternoon and I'll go hang out with the production guy. I'll go play around in the imaging, do stuff, and you learn to do a lot of stuff there. You just can't. You're not going to see that experience anymore.
And showing your face was a big deal too. Like it showed that you were committed, that you really wanted to get something out of this. So on the opportunity where somebody left or a position opened or they had to create something new, they go, well, he's around all the time. Why don't we just get him to do it instead of having to solicit and train somebody new? He kind of already knows how to do this. Mm-hmm. And then that's how you got your foot in the door outside of the internship. It's like, oh my God, now I'm being paid to do like 1 overnight shift where you're watching automation or you're actually playing CDs or something at the time for like from 12 to 6 in the morning on a Saturday night going into Sunday. And that's how you built your resume and your career. And it's a lot different now. I think it's a bit harder now.
I think it's harder. I still, when I talk in colleges and to kids still, I say look for those like road crew type positions or those board op type positions. They do still exist and they still are out there. The road crew ones especially, because stations still do a ton of appearances and still go to concerts and still do the remotes and stuff. So, and I think that's the thing, is like once you're in payroll, basically is what it comes down to. It's like once you're in the system, they'll find places to use you if you're good, but it's getting through that first thing of, just being like literally an employee of a company to be part of it. And that's where you start rubbing elbows, you start meeting the people in the building. That's so anything you can find to get in, that's what helps.
So you do your time in Rochester. Where do you go next?
I was in Rochester for just about 2 years, ballpark. They had a position for me, and it wasn't a lot of money. It was like a late night position. It was great, but I got it offered afternoons in Wilkes-Barre, which was at BHT. And so that was like, I'm going to go there. And I went there in the fall of what it had to be, 2000-ish, someplace in there, 99. I don't know. The numbers are going to run together here. Fall of 99, I think. So I went down and I did 2 years in Wilkes-Barre and became music director there, and got a lot of good experience, being just on the air every day. And, that whole rule of, 10,000 hours where you got to go in and just do something constantly to get better at it. Mm-hmm. That's where I felt like I got better finally, because I was just forced to do, it was every day. I was 4 or 5 hours on the air, and it was great.
I worked very short time at a station in Wilkes-Barre. I'm trying to remember if that was the actual station, but it was just like, the attic of a house.
Let's see. It might have been, what was the Shamrock Classic Rock station there? I'm going to blank on its name. Rock 107, maybe. There's a bunch of smaller ones around there too. I mean, the two big in that market are, now it's Cumulus. It was Citadel.
Was it NBT or something?
That rings a bell, and
it was just like the upstairs of a place that looked like a dilapidated house, and you went up there and like, oh, this is the station. Like, there's no office or anything. You walked right in, and there everything was.
Yeah, those call letters ring a bell, so you might be onto something.
Yeah, I remember somebody, it might have been Pat Samfey or somebody, told me that, like, hey, they need somebody, a body over there. Essentially, it's not really good pay, but you get a few hours, and I think it was only 15-minute drive or something from where we were. So I said, all right, I went over there and did that for a tiny bit.
Yep.
So you're in Wilkes-Barre. Then when do you start heading into Pennsylvania?
Well, Wilkes-Barre, I was in Pennsylvania. So while I was in Wilkes-Barre...
like into the Harrisburg area, sorry.
There's a circuitous route, and it's that word I can't use very well. So I was in Wilkes-Barre, and I got connected with Brian Bridgman, who was programming Q in Philly at the time. And that's where... So I went there, weekends, shifts, fill-in shifts, whatever. So I was doing like 2-3 shifts a week in Philly while I was in Wilkes-Barre. And at some point, the Wilkes-Barre thing fell apart. And I was basically just doing weekends in Philly until I found my next gig. I went to Florida. So I went to Panama City, Florida, which I highly recommend. If anyone if you're going to be like your first management gig, go live on the beach. Might as well.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Beautiful. It's fun. And I was down there for, again, about 2 years. And then I came back to Pennsylvania to Erie, and that's where I was there.
Okay.
And I programmed there for a couple years before 2 more years, I came back down to Harrisburg. And since then, I've been with this group that was Clear Channel at the time. I came down and programmed HKF, which was KISS. And then, one thing leads to another. And there's, I go to Allentown, I'm in Reading and Lancaster, kind of around the whole cluster. But there's just this group of us that are all sort of aligned together here. And I've been with that group since 2004, I think.
4,
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there something, was it a personal goal or personal plan, or is it just the way things worked out that you seem to just do 2 years here, 2 years, 2 years? Or are you always like you're getting situated, then you go, all right, what's my next step? Where's my next step? Are you moving on your own? I think
that's what it was. You're early in your career and you're just trying to get yourself established a little bit. But none of me ever thought I'm going to live in Florida the rest of my life. It just wasn't in the cards. It's like, I think we just coming up in radio, you thought, do a couple years here. I saw a lot of people, they would do 2-3 years, bounce to the bigger gig or something would change. So it just worked out that way. There wasn't really a hard and fast plan that I have to get to the next step. But, for me, it was just moving up and moving to the next position.
So, all right. So this was a personal decision of yours, like, all right, I did a couple years here, you're going to go to the next thing. You get to the Reading, Lancaster, Harrisburg area, and this is pretty much now where you're building your base. Like, this is the area that you're not going to leave from. You've done your time moving around. Now this is like, all right, I'm going to focus here, and this is pretty much where I'm hoping to stay. Yeah.
I just kind of found it here. I like it here. It's close to home for me. It's like 3-4 hours from where I grew up, so it's close enough. It's kind of in the center of everything, but I've just had a really good run here. It's good people. It's good stations. You've really been comfortable here. And again, having moved around, I will say, I mean, I lived in Harrisburg. I've lived in Lancaster, which is like 45 minutes apart. We moved to Allentown for 18 months, basically, to program up there for a little bit before I came back here in 2013 or 14. So it's not like I just stayed in one exact spot in one station, but it's always been with this group because we're all with Clear Channel iHeart. It's all our stations. I've just kind of stayed within, and it's a lot of shared people and a lot of whether management or programmers, they're all kind of woven together. So.
And up until recently, until you got the big bump to executive vice president, you were wearing what they call two hats. You were doing programming and you were still on the air.
Yeah, I mean, I liked being on the air. I was never the one who said I want to be the next Elvis. Maybe I did say that once, but I think there came a point where I realized, like, okay, I can do on air. I like being on air. I'm pretty decent at it, I think, but I'm not going to be like the next guy doing that. I'd rather hang my career on the management side, where I feel really comfortable. I like a lot of what I get to do on a daily basis. So this just was a better fit for me. Do I miss it? Yeah, I kind of do miss being on the air every once in a while. But there came a point, especially when I noticed, right maybe 2019, 2018, where I was just like, anytime I didn't have to be on the air if I was out sick or something, it was actually kind of a relief, because I was just like, man, I just don't have to really put it in that effort today to get the show right and to do everything. And that's when you realize, okay, maybe there's something, that it's good to fill in, but this is not my calling, probably.
Were you doing, if I remember right, because one of the stations you were on was Bob, right? Wasn't it called Bob FM?
Bob, yep.
Was it like a jack or something? Like, it was like a...
Bob
like
here is country.
It's country. Okay.
It's country, yep.
Okay. Yep. So is that sort of the format that you were specializing in, or were you being diverse where you could do 40, pop and move everything? All right, yeah.
I did top 40 all the way up through when I was at B104 in Allentown, which I programmed in like 2012-ish. That was like all up to that point, I'd always been on CHR, always been on those big heritage top 40s like LAN and Star and Erie and Island and Panama City. They're all kind of that same, 50,000 watt, big CHR, been there for 30 years. They all were cut from the exact same cloth. And then when I got the opportunity to come back to Harrisburg to be the regional for Pennsylvania, Bob was the programming opportunity. JT Bosch had left. He had gone to Austin. And had been his station. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to figure out country. And it was great. Country's a really fun format to program.
You've sort of taken, I guess, the natural progression where you always want to be on air, but if it's not in the cards at a certain point and you have the management experience to accelerate your career through a company like that, you take it. Mm-hmm. But did you ever find it weird for the people that, like, everybody's main goal in radio is to be on the air, mm-hmm. and the people that were just so quickly to walk away from it to take a desk job? Like, I mean, they're good at what they're doing, but you're like, that's curious because that's not what attracts people to coming into this business. And then you just went to that route instead of really trying to do the on-air thing.
Yeah, and I still love doing stuff for on air. I think that's part of it. Like,
I don't think that ever goes away.
No, I mean, I love like writing promos and still playing around in editing. I put it on my Facebook yesterday where I found like my 2007 imaging demo, because I actually used to do a ton of imaging stuff. I was like a imaging director and did all that stuff, and I loved it.
Now, even more of today's best.
Island. Yo, check this out right here, folks. It's your Dirty Nelly for sure. You know what I'm saying?
97 HD.
Hey, this is Christina Aguilera. This is Christina Aguilera.
Today's music.
97.
Like, are we rolling?
Yeah, go ahead. 97 BHT.
It's gonna be me.
Hey, this is JC. And I'm Chris. And we're from NSYNC.
We might be 99.
Going down,
Hey, yo, what's up? This is Eminem.
Wild 95.5. It's WLDI, Fort Pierce, the Palm Beaches, and Boca Raton.
Wild
95. Now broadcasting in high definition and to the world at wild955.com.
Turn it up!
Island 106. Best music. They're your ears. Give them what they want. All of today's hit music on one station. One station. All the hits. Star 104. The new. The home of hip-hop and R&B in West Texas. 1049. The Beat.
If you were partying in room 95, the party has moved to room 92.5. And yes, our party is better.
Because we have midgets.
The hot new B92. Today's hottest music.
And that's still the fun stuff. And you just got to, even in a management position, you have to find a way to dabble back in that stuff every once in a while. I'll find myself even now is like, I'd almost rather like create a promo for somebody rather than trying to explain to them how to do the promo. Like, hey, here's an example. Let me show you what this, and it's just easier to explain that way. But you got to. That's the fun stuff we get to do. I'm not necessarily the one person who sits in front of the mic and talks for 3 hours. My talk guys, I've got a bunch of them, and I tell them, I was like, you do the most amazing thing. I do not know how you can sit in front of a mic for 3 hours every day and tell a cohesive story and make it entertaining. I mean, that's just that's so foreign to me, the ability to just sit down and do that, because
you were more of the jock, right? Like,
yeah, definitely more of a jock. I've done mornings, but it was way more fun when you get to be like the second mic, who's like, you're kind of the flavor to the the little zips here and there. But when you actually have to run the conversation and be the focal point, it's a little weird.
Well, you're doing a good job now.
Well, I'm trying, thank you, but I've got a good co-host.
All right, so you get all of this moving you to Harrisburg. You get you're now upper management. Technically, I guess you could fire us, but you could do all of this stuff here. Do you ever how do I put it? Do you try to still go back and coach younger people? Like, I know you have other responsibilities now, but if you're in that area and you're still overseeing a cluster or something, do you still go back and try to help younger people coming into this? Because it's hard to see with the lack of internships and just radio still is popular, but in different ways. Not like it used to be popular. It's still surviving and still strong in a lot of demos, but it's not people don't think of radio the way they used to think of radio now. It's totally different. And I don't see a lot of younger people looking to come into this business. Like, you find some once in a while, but I don't see people like, oh man, I want to be a rock jock, or I want to work at the top 40 station, or I want to work at like Hot 97 or something like that. I don't hear that anymore. So whenever I find somebody or run into somebody, or if they reach out to me and they say, hey, I'm looking to do that, I'm amazed and I'm excited. I'm like, oh my God, somebody still wants to do this. Do you find, do you still try to help people if they reach out to you? Like, look, I don't know what I'm doing here. How do I get a foot in the door? Yeah,
I'm lucky. There's a I'll try Talent Radios. Oh gosh, I'm going to blank on their name right now. But we do the Confer Radio Summit up in Bloomsburg every year. Dan Valley kind of heads it up, and
I know him.
Dan, I apologize, I'm blanking on the name right now. It's like the Radio Talent Summit, and then he's going to shoot me an email and yell at me. But they put them on around the country, and they bring in like different programmers, and there's like 7 to 10 days. Those are great because you can just sit there and you're 2 hours in a room with 15, 20 younger people who maybe they want to do radio, maybe they don't know, but they're going to check it out. You have a really great audience who's interested, and you can just explain things to them. But if people hit me up, I do every once in a while, you get somebody who's like, hey, I'm interested in this. What should I do? Absolutely. You listen to them, you spend some time, shoot some emails, just try to help out where you can. I think we almost have to as that's like part of our jobs. Like, you can't just ignore the next generation of people who want to come through and do this. And maybe it's somebody in your road crew, like I said earlier, hey, I've got interest in doing this. What do I need to do? And take some time and show them. I think that's just got to be part of every one of us, to go in and show them that the really good stuff that we get to do every single day and all the fun things that go along with it. And it's a good job.
Take us through your day now as an executive. I mean, obviously,
all over the place.
when you know, it's not like I get to the office, I show up and do all this stuff, because some people are working at the office, some people have the hybrid schedule, some people are still just working, remotely. What is give us an example of what it is you do here, Bob.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting with having a market still, because I still oversee the central Pennsylvania markets directly. In addition to the other markets, but I've still got in old school I would have been the OM. Now it's the SVP of the market here. So really for me, a couple days a week are really devoted to those markets, and that's things like promo meetings, department head meetings, stuff like that, where you're going to go in. That's 1 or 2 days a week, a few hours here and there. Maybe you meet with a client, work with sales on something. So still sort of that hands-on in the market. The other days, some of it goes back to you have to prep. You have to actually build time into your schedule. I do bi-weekly meetings with all of my markets, and I try to use those as teaching sessions. And it's not necessarily like, hey, look at this eye chart. Here's where your ratings are up and here's where it's down. It's sort of like, here's what's happening right now in the world. Here's how we're looking at things as far as it's back to school, and here's some of the good things we're trying to do around this, and here's what your station should be looking at. Kind of, I don't know if high level doesn't sound like the right way, but almost going in and just sort of trying to show the big picture to the markets of, here's our goals for the next few weeks. Here's what we're looking at. Here's what's coming up. Let's talk about that. So there's, days where that's almost my whole day, because I have 4 regions and it's like 29 markets total. So it's a lot of people that we end up talking to. And there's days too where I kind of keep my schedule a little blank, knowing very well it's going to fill in with something. And, when you emailed me and said, hey, is tomorrow good? And I was like, tomorrow's great. I have actually had kept my day pretty open today. And so it worked out awesome that I get to just, this pops in. But there's not like a real set schedule where I go in, I'm at the office at 8:30 and I do this meeting and I do this call. It really is fluid, and I think it takes a lot of discipline. One of the guys when I came into this role told me it's sort of a lonely job, in that you really are kind of on your own. You kind of build what you need to do to get what you need done, but no one's necessarily going to tell you, here's how you do it. Here's the path you have to follow. It's about get to the results you want, but you are kind of setting your own schedule. You're kind of setting your own day. I mean, for me, I still start my day mentally. When I come into my office, I'm trying to be here no later than 8:30 just to pop in, even though I've been checking emails in the morning, even though if there's a text or something from morning show, I've been responding to it, but I still try to have my butt in a chair at a certain point just to mentally get in that mindset of, hey, I'm working now.
Yeah, it's really easy to fall out of that, especially when you're working at home or remote, where like, oh, I can sit down and do this at any time, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I should have sat down an hour ago. I didn't realize I wasn't paying attention to this.
And that's why when we were talking before we hopped on, was like, when we moved houses a year ago, I said, I want an office, because it's old school.
It's all the mindset. Yeah,
it is. This is my office. This is where I work. I don't come in here and play around with the kids. I don't do it. I come in here and I work. And so having this actual 4 walls with stuff hanging on it and a few of my little trinkets here and there, it's working here. And for me, that's great. And I still love having, I go to work, the Harrisburg office a couple days a week. I still have an office proper that I go in and sit in and do work, because it's where, when I'm in there, I feel like I'm in work mode.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
In all your years of doing this, can you tell us some of your favorite, I don't want to say guests, because I don't know if you're really doing interviews and stuff, but like interactions with other artists, talent, actors, anything like that? Have you had any kind of memorable stories in your years of doing radio? It's like, oh, this one time such and such came to the station, or we were at this iHeart event and I ran into this person, and those kind of things.
I've had a ton of great artist stuff through the years. I remember Justin Bieber coming in when he was like 15 years old, and he was doing his like first U.S. radio run, and he came around and did the little things at all the stations. And to see like the excitement of a small station in Lancaster, even though it's a big station, but it's Lancaster, and we had dozens upon dozens of people lined up in the parking lot like it was TRL with the signs, and it's like, oh wow, this is something. This kid's gonna really be bigger than just what he is right now, and you could see it come through. So that was kind of cool to see. There's one that I remember because country especially was great, where artists they all did the radio run. So they all did their radio tour to start off their careers. Like, they pop in the van, they go to every single radio station in the country, play their songs, play it, talk to everybody. And they still do that to a certain extent, but they're probably the best format for that. And we were in the studio in Harrisburg, and this had to be, let's say, 2014, maybe 6, 7, 8 years ago. And two guys came in and they did their little radio thing, and they said, okay, we're going to play the songs. And they did a cover of Tom Petty. They said, okay, and they just played Free Fallin'. And it was mind blowing how good it was. To the classic rock jock came running down the hallway and slams open the door. It's like, what is going on here? This is amazing. And I've never seen a reaction like that before from another programmer. And it was Dan and Shay, who end up having like multiple Grammy Awards and #1 records out the wazoo and just the nicest guys. But like that moment where you're seeing something right at the beginning where it's like, and everybody in the room knows something big is coming out of these guys. That's what's cool, with the artist stuff, is just seeing some of these up and comers, like, who end up becoming the next big thing, but you get to see them that first step through. And it's really neat. You don't get to ever go back to that as an artist.
I'm glad you said that, because that was one of the things when I was doing my show. I was still doing O&A and other stuff, but we had my own show on our channel. And I always loved getting the new people, the new actors and actresses and musicians or whatever that weren't known, that weren't getting I may have known them from a bit part somewhere. And I'm like, yeah, I can talk to them about that. I'll take those people. When a lot of the shows they want the top tier stuff, they don't want to do the work with the up and comers because they feel that whatever reason, either they've earned it or they feel that they deserve the top tier talent coming in. So I always took everybody. I'm like, yeah, I'll do this. And then when the talent bookers would come around, it's like, hey, could you do us a favor? If you take this person, then we can get this person for the other. You know how it deals with publicists. Mm-hmm. And I love doing that, because then over the years you start to see them getting to bigger and better things. You're like, oh my God, I talked to that person, or that person hung out for an hour and now he's on I had Chris Hemsworth before people really even knew who he was. He was just cast as Thor. They just knew him as this sort of like Australian actor, but not from many big projects. And Bella Thorne and there's a whole bunch of people when you sit there and it's like, it's cool to talk to them then, because then when they get really big, they still come and talk to you. They're like, yeah, I remember you helped us out, or I remember this place would talk to us when all the other bigger places wouldn't, and then they do pay that back. So that's kind of a great experience when you get to see the new talent right before they hit.
Yeah, never turn down an autograph. That's the lesson I have from all of that, because years ago, and it was back at Mansfield. This was 97 or 98. The opening act for the Wyclef Jean concert was like, hey, do you guys want like autograph photos or anything?
I didn't
with
get
you? One. You might have been there, and I did not get one. And so Beyonce turned out to be a big thing, and Destiny's Child turned out to be big, and I never got the autograph that I should have said yes to back in the day and got the photo. Is this it right here? Is this the Yeah, see, I'm supposed to have that.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be mine.
But look at that.
Look at that.
16-year-old Beyonce and 18-year-old me.
Yeah, I was too busy to take a picture with her or something. I don't remember what I was doing. I was probably hanging banners. I was like, I can't right now. I'll get there.
Yeah, I remember. I always tell that story. It was Wyclef, this new group, Destiny's Child, and John Forte. And I remember for the radio station, they said, well, look, you can talk to Wyclef. We were paying for them to be there, but you can talk to Wyclef if you talk to Destiny's Child first. Yeah. So these the two hip hop DJs, I guess, at the station, Erik and Dave Ewing, Erik Healy, they went and did all that stuff because I didn't really know them. That song No 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 was just coming out. Yep. It hadn't blown up yet. And they're like, oh, you want to talk to them? They're pretty girls. They're nice. Yeah, why not? So, they did the interview, and we're all just hanging out. And then we got to talk to Wyclef for a little bit, which was awesome. And then, lo and behold, boom, she's one of the biggest stars ever in the industry.
Yeah, it's an icon of the industry, and I was too busy hanging banners to take a picture with her. So a bit of advice, always just say yes. Take the autograph, take the photo. I put one on my Facebook today, and this goes back to country. But 5 years ago today, my time hop popped up, and I was scrolling through it, And it's a cool picture. One of my friends, Nikki, took. We were at a concert, and I was walking with the opening act, like the first person who comes on while everybody's still in the parking lot. And so the two of us were walking and chatting, and she just took this cool black and white photo behind us and sent it to me. And I posted it up because 5 years ago, and it's Morgan Wallen. And
wow.
It's no mullet, nothing. He's got his hair. We had gone up in the stands to just like, hey, we're going to take a couple of fans down to the pit for the Florida Georgia Line show or something. And so he's like, yeah, come on, bro. And we just walked up together, grabbed a beer. We're up there. He actually, one of us spilled a listener's beer, and so we ended up giving them tickets or something. And it's like, and that was 5 years ago. And again, the photo just popped up today, and I was like, oh my God, it feels like that was 2 decades ago. But yeah, really, you get to meet a lot of people, and you never know what's going to happen with them, but just treat everybody nice. They're all trying to do something that's really, really difficult. So don't be a pain about it. Like take the time, do the interview, spend 5 minutes, ask them about them. Don't tell your boring stories about yourself. Find out about them, find out what's going on. And these people are so, they're doing something that's damn near impossible. And to see a lot of them make it through is pretty cool.
There was one time where I love British humor, British comedy. Mm-hmm. And one of the talent bookers said, hey, there's this British comedy production that's coming to Broadway called The Play That Went Wrong. And the whole concept is you're going to see, it's like a 1920s murder mystery kind of thing, and everything goes wrong. The set's falling apart, they're saying the wrong lines, wrong characters show up, the audience starts fights and stuff. Like, it's weird, but it's hilarious. And they said, well, would you be interested in going to see this? I said, yeah, I'll go see it. And they're like, great. Would you be interested in talking to the cast? Because if you want to go see it, you got to talk to the cast. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fine. I'll talk to the cast. That's great. Yep. So set everything up. And then I find out that this play was brought to America by J.J. Abrams. He was producing the American run because he went and saw it, I guess, what's it called? The West End, which is the yep. Piccadilly, their Broadway over there. It was a small production over there, and he was filming that first new Star Wars movie, and during a break he snuck off and saw this thing and loved it. So he went and saw it 2 or 3 more times, brought people there, talked with the production people, the cast, whatever, and he's like, I'd like to do something with this, and then finance their American run in New York. And I find out after this and said, well, because you talked to them, JJ's coming in next month to promote the play and Star Wars coming up. You get to do an interview with him. And I went, yep. That's awesome. Yeah, of course. Yeah. I'd love to talk to him. There was only 3 people that he came in to do the interviews because we went and saw the production. None of the other shows would go and do it, so he didn't want to talk to anybody. Mm-hmm. And then I'm just sitting there, and you're looking at everything's glass at that place, yeah. And people looking at it, it's like, how the hell is he talking? It's like, he went and saw the play. That's all you had to do. And it wasn't like I was forced to. It was just something kind of cool. It was a nice little perk of being in this business, and mm-hmm. I like talking to people. And then you find out that good things happen when you help other people out.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely the truth. And you're laughing about the people not wanting to go to the play, but I mean, I think prior to 2020 especially, we all were like that. It's like, oh man, I have to go to another concert tonight. I'm going to be busy. It's like that completely changed coming out of pandemic. Now I'm like, where can I go? Where can we do stuff? Like what, who's coming through? Let's go see it,
Just to get out of the house.
Yeah. There came a point in like the end of like 19 or something where it's just like, oh gosh, I'm too busy to go have fun at this concert tonight. Like, no, this is the best part of our job. Don't ever turn this stuff down.
Growing up, I didn't ask you this, growing up, for you to get an interest in radio, you had to have somebody that you listened to, mm-hmm. or somebody else that you respected and idolized. Who influenced you in your mindset of radio before going to college?
Well, a couple parts with. I was lucky. My best friend growing up was like, well, we were way out in the country, so we lived like a mile apart, and we were up at the 2 closest houses. His dad was like an engineer, worked for IBM, but in the past had been a broadcast engineer. So he had worked at WENY and Weenie, by the way, that was the name of the station, Weenie. But he had been like just an AM engineer, AM FM engineer. And so my friend started board opping like the Saturday morning polka show or something at this little tiny station called WEHH, which the building is still there. It's not thankfully a radio station anymore because it was half underwater. But it was he would go in and do Saturday mornings. So I kind of was like, oh, that sounds cool. I'll come in and do that too. Cause we would kind of do the whole like, hey, make a radio station at home. We'll, be the DJs. Hey, we're your DJ, that kind of, when you're 13 years old, it looks awesome. And so he got me in there, and then I kind of moved along a couple other stations, go over and board up Yankees games, go over and do some weekend stuff. But it was interesting because it was again, we're talking pre-internet really. So I wasn't lucky enough to have I never heard Stern live at the time. I wasn't able to have a lot of those bigger outside influence everybody had, but I had all these great local guys. I had you mentioned Wink. It was Mike. I'm sorry, Bob Quick and Mike Williams were there. There was Michael Williams, not Mike. Mike sounds less classy. I had the guys that like Mike Strobel, and these guys were just like cool local DJs, and I'd run into them when I'd go out stalking remotes or something, and they were really just like, that's what got me started. But some of the national ones really jumped out to me because I was just kind of geeked out by the whole radio thing. At some point it bit me. I don't know where it was. I was like, this is cool. And you remember this one. You remember Dr. Demento?
Of course.
Wind up your radio. Westwood One presents the Dr. Demento Show. 2 hours of mad music and crazy comedy from out of the archives and off the wall. Rare records and outrageous tapes from yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
Oh my God, Dr. Demento was like,
love Dr. Demento.
I taped every week's show. Like I had to have.
He was on Sunday nights in the New York area, I think.
Yeah, so I would be like, all right, I'm gonna get my Funny Five. I'm gonna get whatever Weird Al song he's playing this week, and just all this. And I got hooked on that show, and my mom probably says every cassette still that I have.
I was going to say, how excited were you to discover if you're in the mall one day and you see in the music store, oh my God, he's got cassettes and he's got CDs.
And I would just tape stuff off the radio, and I would take it to my friend's house, and we would sit there and play these off a little cassette player and laugh our asses off.
If I have to hear "They're Coming to Take Me Away Again," I'm coming to take away your tapes. Enough.
Now that song's going to be stuck in my head for the rest of my day now.
Throw that into a station as one of those old wow cuts, Where the Linnies are. It was just such a great, weird show, and I loved it. The other one I thought I was watching one of your other interviews. You were talking to some people, and I got my brain thinking about some of the shows that I liked growing up, and I was like, I had to go back and find it. Do you remember Pirate Radio USA? It was a Westwood One show, and it was like Saturday nights, and it was metal and all at the time. They used to syndicate it on vinyl. Like they would sleeves of vinyl they would send the stations, and you drop the needle, or if the station was smart, they recorded it to reel, and then played it that way.
It was a 5-hour Saturday night show, and I remember sitting around every Saturday night because I didn't really probably have much else to do at the time. I lived in the middle of nowhere. I would sit there and listen to that show, and it was. I figured out eventually that it was repeating from 7 to midnight, and then midnight to 5 they'd play it again, which was awesome because back in when the Black Album came out from Metallica, they played. That's the first place I ever heard Enter Sandman was on the start of this show, and it was like at the 7:05 we're playing it, and so I stayed up until midnight so I could record it onto a cassette player, so I would have a copy of Enter Sandman that I could go impress all my friends with, and they were all like, "Whoa, my God, I can't believe you heard this." But that was just at the end of it, I think Lon Friend was the host. Shadow Stevens, I think, hosted it before that. And that was one of those shows where I had to listen every night. I made an appointment every Saturday night. I wanted to go and listen to Pirate Radio USA and hear whatever the cool new bands were going to be. And that's where I heard Dream Theater, and that's where I heard all this great stuff that I fell in love with.
This is Pirate Radio USA.
Let's crank it up. It's Pirate Radio Saturday Night with Lon Friend. Yes, it is Lon Friend. Yes, it is Pirate Radio Saturday Night. Top of this hour, I'm playing you a tune. I'm going to shove this tune down your throat until you say, Lon, that's the best song I ever heard.
Pirate Radio USA.
This is Pirate Radio USA. If you ain't cranking it, you must be yanking it. Shando is live all across the planet. This is Pirate Radio USA. I'm Shando and the party is in progress. Come on. I don't want any of you crapping out on us because I ain't nowhere near done tonight. We may party ourselves into a coma or a semi-oblivion if we give it a somebody get me a doctor.
It is true. If the Earth were to receive an enema, the host would go on this very radio program live from the Southern California mothership. It's Pirate Radio USA. We have taken over your radio station. There's not a damn thing you can do about it, but just crank it up and listen. I'm JB Osborne on Pirate Radio USA.
Pirate Radio USA.
I really liked your selection of your influences because a lot of the people I did get to talk to kind of grew up in the backyard of big markets, DC, LA, New York, things like that. So you're hearing a lot of the bigger names, and then you're hearing the local jocks, which were still big names, but they were local jocks for those markets. And then, I never hear anybody mention Dr. Demento outside of some tie to Weird Al as an influence. And I was like, yeah, he really was, because he was one of those shows you would have to tape. Get those 120-minute cassette tapes, and hopefully your recording deck had the automatic flip over, so it kept recording, didn't miss anything, and then would listen to it the next day after school.
No, he was such it's a legend. I mean, you don't. He's one of the bigger names of radio history. If you really go back and look at the influence, he's somebody who did something completely unique, found his own genre of music, has his own thing, made a huge following, and Weird Al is probably the biggest example, but he made people famous out of that. Who did weird parody songs before him? Nobody.
Do you think there's room in radio now for somebody like that to develop?
I don't know if radio necessarily, because it's tricky. But in audio, yes, absolutely. There's room for somebody like that. You're not going to probably have a station that completely, I think the station that played him for me was like a top 40 station. Nobody's going to stop being a top 40 station for 3 hours on a Sunday to play some weird parody songs all night. But there's a place for parts of it. I mean, you talk, there's still shows that do great parody songs, like morning shows. That's still part of the mix for a lot of shows. And if they're well done and not cornball and not cheesy, or maybe they're completely cornball, but that's part of the gag, there's still a place for it. It's just, you're probably not going to have a 3-hour show devoted to parody songs anymore.
Where do you see the future of radio going? Because if you're on the inside, you see the statistics, you see the research, like from that Edison research that comes in, and you're seeing all that, and you're like, wow, you'd think radio was dying during the pandemic, but you're seeing no, a lot of the numbers were up. And surprisingly, in some cases, you're like, wow, this is not what we expected. So if you're on the inside, you can see that no, radio still has a lot of value, still has a lot of reach and a lot to do. A lot of public perception is because everything's so easy to get off of a music streaming service or YouTube or podcast or things like that, that they don't feel that there's a need for the radio anymore. Where do you see radio going?
I mean, radio is already, it's here. It's on our smartphones. My very beat up red one, by the way. That's where everything kind of lands. Is audio is exploding right now. People love listening to audio. They put their earbuds in, they're on the bus, they're in the car listening. It's just, we have to make sure everything we do goes well here. Radio, when it's really done at its best, music radio, let's start with that, because there's talk and music are really different lanes. But music radio at its best is a wonderfully curated experience where it's someone who makes you laugh and entertains you and gives you good information about something that's going on and plays some songs that you like. I mean, that's really what it is. It's like there comes a point in your life where you don't want to have to make playlists anymore. You just want to enjoy things and have someone explain what's going on and what the weather's like. That's still really good. When it's really well done, it's really compelling. So I think that's good. It's probably going to get to your ears a different set of wires than it used to. But at the end of the day, I want to hear what's going on. I want to hear what songs are happening in whatever format I happen to be listening to. And then talk is, how many podcasts are there now? I couldn't tell you. Talk radio was always one lane. We realized talk is extremely powerful. It's just podcasting has opened up a billion different lanes for conversations. So, is it going to look the same as it does today? No, absolutely not. It's just how it gets to your ears is going to be completely different. And it's going to be ugly sometimes trying to make transitions and change things. And we're going to try some things that do work and some things that don't work. And that's okay. But we got to try things. And that's the important thing is people still just really want to have a good friend playing them some songs and making them laugh or making them smile. And And that's what radio at its core always does the best.
You said we got to try some things, and that definitely is more crucial than ever. You can't really, to coin a phrase, rest on your laurels anymore. When the old days where like, oh, this station's not really working anymore. Oh, we'll just flip it to classic rock. It's an easy fix. Like there's no easy fix at all anymore. You kind of have to be determined. You have to pay attention. You got to be creative with this stuff. What do you think is new to do with radio?
I think what the good shows are finding is really making the social side it's just part of the show. It's not something where, oh gosh, I have to do an Instagram post to promote this. And it's not, it's almost like 10 years ago, I was listening to some air checks and I was listening, and it was from 10, 15 years ago. And the thing we all did back then was, wow, you won't believe what Beyonce wore on the red carpet. See the photo now on our website. Well, nobody does that. Nobody's going to go. So now it's like you just have to tell that story organically through social. Social has to be such an organic part of your show. It's not, you're not putting up a banner that says, here's the one reason to go over there and push the button on the box and listen to me now. Now it's just like it exists in that space. And that's where, really good good talented shows are going to figure out a way that it's just part of what they do every day, and it's just as important as talking up a song or doing a great bit or having a great guest. Is all of it works together, and that's not like necessarily a big thing that we maybe change what we do. It's just doing it way better is where we have to be.
I find it useful not just for any of the stuff that I work on, but for other shows that know in the talk genre that know how to use social media right. I find it very helpful that when they put up a video or a photo of something and they don't really explain it, like from the host's lives or something, right? And they don't really explain it. And they just put it up there and it's like, tune in Monday to hear what this is, for the explanation, whatever. So while they're telling their story and they're talking to the audience, and you can go, all right, so if you want to go over to our Instagram right now, you give out the handle or something like that, you can see the photo or you can see the video right there, and then they're explaining the story while everyone's going to look. And it's like, oh my God, it's almost TV in that aspect where it's like, well, it's real-time interaction while you're, whether it's live or not, but if you're listening on demand, whatever, it's live to you at that moment. All right, let me go take a look. Oh, there's the photo, and you're looking at the photo while they're telling the story. I'm like, oh, this adds another layer to it, and this really makes it more compelling. Now that I see this photo, you feel like you're sort of on the inside, or that you're part of that world.
One of my favorite things that I've seen some really good hosts do is things like, let's say the Grammy Awards or some kind of like a music thing where they will sit there and like live stream from their house while they're watching the show and kind of interact with the audience while it's going on. Like they're just sitting there eating popcorn, watching the Grammys, whatever, talking about what's going on. And their listeners, their fans are right there with them having the conversation. So it builds that, that connectiveness that's crucial for what we do.
That used to be, I think it was called Second Screen. They used to do that sometimes for television events. Like, oh, you can join us in the chat room over here while you're watching the episode as it's broadcasting live on NBC, and you're doing that experience. And then you're like, well, I don't really need that particular thing, but like Dave Portnoy, he does it when he's watching certain sporting events, or if he's out at the horse races and things are live on television. They pop on the stream, and you're like, he's giving you their play-by-play or their discussion of or betting statistics, whatever's going on while the event's happening. You see them react with this, and that is kind of cool. It's like, wow, I'm there, I'm part of this.
Yeah, I mean I think that's where we need to be. Just you're not doing a 4-hour show anymore, and I feel like we've been preaching that for 15 years now. But you don't do a 4-hour show. You are if you're on air, you're a brand, you are a person, you're a connection, a friend the whole time. And even if it's, you're texting out some funny things or tweeting out things or on Instagram or TikTok, whatever it is, you're just living like this sort of online life that everybody's a part of. And your show is also part of that ecosphere. That is
interesting, too, that you brought up, having been on shows where at one point we were doing like 5.5 hours between two companies, between CBS and XM straight. But the days of a 4-hour morning show or even the afternoon show just seem to be a bit antiquated now. Like, you don't really need to do all 4 hours, 2 to 3 at most for a radio show, because you got commercials and sometimes music or whatever, whittles your time down. But in a way, less is more, but it's the kind of content you give them that's satisfying, that's fulfilling, instead of the length of it.
Yeah. And there's some people who can go 6 hours straight and do a great show, and God bless them if they can do it and it stays interesting, great. But I think you're better served to probably do a 3-hour show, maybe a 4-hour show, just to, like you say, hit the A material, and then, that's it.
What would people be surprised to learn about you and your career?
That's an interesting question. I feel like I've been on a job interview now. You could put me on the spot here because I don't find myself a particularly interesting person outside of, I'm very much like this homebody, quiet guy behind, and maybe that's why I'm not gravitating towards being the first mic on a morning show, or maybe that is like, I just kind of like being quiet and listening and really tinkering with things behind the scenes. But I don't love like necessarily being in that spotlight or being that I would rather help someone be good at that than do it. So, but I don't know if that's surprising about me or not. I think if you know me, you sort of pick up on that pretty quick. So I don't know if that's surprising or not.
What question are you surprised nobody's asked you that you think you would have been asked by now?
Oh my God, now that's a tricky question. What has no one asked me that you've got my brain spinning, and I cannot think of a great cohesive answer for this one. That actually is something, because people are pretty open about asking me questions. So I don't know if anybody has not asked me something.
Because once in a while you find out from somebody where you just happen to be having a casual conversation, not even on air, just, hanging out or something. And then it kind of dawns on me, like, you know what? All my years, nobody's ever asked me that. And that's how I always find fascinating, when sometimes you can just accidentally hit the right note and somebody goes, I never thought to talk about that, or nobody ever asked me that before.
I just don't feel like nobody's never asked me something. I mean, that's a great question. I just have a terrible response to it. I can't think of something that I think people haven't asked me about that I wish I had a better answer. Now I feel like I've let everybody down.
You kind of did.
I'm sorry. I owe everybody a coffee or something. That's a brilliant question. If you give that to someone far more interesting. So maybe that goes back to, I'm really not that interesting of a person. I just play one on the radio.
We all do that. We all just play interesting people on the radio.
I'm never getting invited back because I can't answer the good questions.
No, it's perfectly fine. It's not really anything. It's one of those points to ponder, that echoes through time.
I'll be laying awake at 2 a.m. going, God, there's the answer. And I'm like, Erik, here's the answer I should have given. Retape it. Put the same clothes on.
I'll put you back on. We'll do the star wipe, and then all of a sudden Jeff's right back there again. It's like, I have the answer, and nobody cares at this point.
God, yeah.
Jeff, thank you so much for wasting your time with me here. You're a busy man, an important man, and you're sitting here talking to an old college pal that I can't do anything possibly for your career, but it was fun to pick your brain, and I'm very fascinated with people in this business and all aspects of where they get their starts, what lit that fire inside them to pursue anything in this business, and where they've gone from that point on. So I'm just
still amazed I do this, and I not to just like, I want to talk about me, but I remember remember Marx Brothers?
Yeah.
I sat in the corner of Marx Brothers.
That burnt down, by the way, I think.
I know, and I was. Believe me, I got texted right away. People were like, Marx Brothers burnt down. I'm like, I know. One of my best friends, best man at my wedding, is still he's a police officer up there. And so right away, he was probably checking on me to make sure I was okay before, because the beautiful Bevador that was inside, I think probably got burnt.
I know you're 4 hours away, but I just wanted to console you.
Yeah, that the bar that we used to hang out at is burnt down. So I remember one of the distinct memories I have was sitting there one night having a pint or something and drinking, and like that moment where I thought, like, I had a lot of friends who had gone to television. I was interning at the TV station at one point, and I was like, oh, what am I going to do next? And I was doing radio kind of as a fun thing, and I sat in that corner booth and was like, I guess I could try it as a career. Okay. And that was sort of like, okay, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to go, I'll do an intern. I'll just see if I can make this work. And that was 29 years ago, basically, or 20 whatever years ago that you said it was. So, it doesn't really feel like work. I mean, yes, there's a lot of work, but it's still really fun and it's still really enjoyable. And I'd rather do this than pretty much anything else in the world. So,
is this what, do you think eventually you'll hit the age where you retire? Or is this something that if, God willing, you would just keep doing until your days are over?
I'm retiring. I'm retiring.
Oh, you are?
I love. Dude, get me wrong. Love doing this. This is a blast. This is so much fun. But there comes a point where I really just want to
live a life.
Yeah, I want to go do whatever is next. I'll do stuff, and maybe I'll always have a toe in the water here with things. But yeah, I don't want to just. I don't want to be the person who they have to put on a cart and take out of the studio. I really want to be able to, at some point, say, okay, done my part. There's more people coming behind me, and they're great for the business. It's your turn now. Go crazy. And
I'd never thought that way until I had a kid. Mm-hmm. And that was only a little over a year ago. And now it's completely different. Like, everyone says, oh, having a kid changes you. And you're always like, whatever. Oh, yeah. I know that you got to take care of the kid and stuff. But it's when you're not around the kid is when it starts to sit in. You start thinking about them growing up, their future, your future. What are you doing? Are you spending enough time? Are you doing the right things? What else could I be doing? Mm-hmm. And then it's like late at night. You're sitting there trying to watch TV, and then your head is just going through all this, and you go, wow, I think I might actually have it in me in a point in my life where I'd be done with this. And this is all I ever wanted to do since I was at 5 years old. I used to call Scott Shannon all the time when he was the morning guy at Z100 in New York, just because they would give out the phone number on the air, and I was like, oh, I could call and talk to somebody. So I would pick up the phone and call them. And it's been in me ever since. And now I'm at having the kid. It's like, I'll do this I still have a lot more to go.
Yeah.
But I can kind of see the end of the line, too. It's like, all right, I'm going to hit a point where I think I'm done.
Yeah, I think my kids forced me, because my son now is 6, my daughter's 3. My kids forced me to be able to turn it off once in a while, and I was never good at turning it off.
Me neither.
And something flipped when he was born, and I was like, I have to be able to turn this off sometimes. And turning it off for me is still, maybe I'll give it like an hour of not checking emails or whatever. But I'm like always trying to be present in the moment with them as much as I can. Not going to every possible thing because I want to be home. Just being able to step back and say, oh, I really enjoy this too. I think that was good. And that, my kids really, really triggered that in me. To have a little bit of a side where I'm very comfortable saying, yeah, I'm not on the sort of mentally on the clock. Even if something blows up, yeah, I'm on the clock.
Yeah.
But I'm going to take a step back, and I'm not going to worry right now about a few things, and I'll make sure it gets done on time.
Is there anything else that you want to say here? Anything we didn't cover? Anything you want to point out?
I don't know. At some point, I think I want to flip this around on you, because I really want to hear the stories from your side, because you have gone through some of the most interesting shows that I've, again, not growing up.
Do you know any of the stuff that I did?
I know some of this stuff, but I don't want to know all the stuff.
No.
I bring up like Opie and Anthony, and like listening. We talk about I didn't grow up near the city. For me, Stern and a lot of these big shows was kind of like I had to go back and I found myself like I'd hear a bit and go, I want to hear more about this. And God bless, now I can go in and
it's all on YouTube
or wherever. I can go back and kind of like, it's almost like I missed a genre of classic rock just because it wasn't played. Now I got to go back and buy all the albums. So I found myself at some point in my career going back and listening to these shows and going, wow, I love this, is incredible. And hearing these moments and experiencing in a different way. It's just, cause I like radio, but I love, some of the shows that you've been a part of and some of the moments you've been a part of. It's really cool.
I would love to do that with you sometime. I think that would be interesting.
It's just going to be me sitting back going, wow, you did what? How did you get away with that? And that's all it's going to be, me staring like this at the screen for like 90 minutes.
Perfectly fine. I don't think anybody else. That is a true radio nerd conversation. Not that this wasn't, but I love and I love this stuff. I love talking with people, especially when you get a chance to talk to people in this industry. But yeah, I would do that sometimes too. I was like, can I just pick your brain about some of these shows that you were on? And just fascinated, like it was nothing to them at the time, but just fascinated by how they did certain things or how they got away with things or how they even came up with things. I would love to have that conversation with you.
Yeah, because I was never really on my career. I've never been in an edgy type show, like one of those shows where it's a full talk show. It's shock jock, I guess is the word, but that's a genre. Yeah, but you know what I mean with that. A couple times I got to fill in and be a part of Brother Weeze's show when I was young in Rochester. And that was just sort of like moment where I went in and I was like, I am way out of my comfort zone. I have no idea what I'm doing here. And I was just like holding onto the couch for dear life, reading the news. And that's what it, and the fact that you and guys have done that every day for years, that's so cool to me. And I was like, I can't imagine being in that world every day, the stories and the excitement that must come out of that.
Let's do it. Let's do it sometime. Whether it's on here or if I come out your way, we just go to dinner or something.
Yeah, I'll take you to Hershey and we can sit there and enjoy dinner
while we're on the roller coasters. And all the mascots that refuse to shake our hand as they go storming down the hallway.
Stop! They'll shake our hands. They love us. All the mascots love us.
Jeff, thank you so much. Jeff Hurley, Executive Vice President of Programming at iHeartMedia, handles regional stuff, national program. He's a guy who's seen and done it all and is still making more.
I hope so. Thank you, man. Appreciate the time. Hi, it's Jeff Hurley, and I just did Erik Nagel. Oh, God, I can't even read your name. This is where you put the beep in. Hi, I'm Jeff Hurley. I just did Erik Nagel's Radio Inquisition. I'm very disappointed that after 20 years, I lost my hair and he didn't. So congratulations, Erik. One up me there. Radio
Inquisition. And this concludes my interview with my old pal, Jeff Hurley. Now, this is the spot where usually we want to plug the projects or where you can hear the person's show or just go and see any of the things that they're doing. But he's not currently doing that kind of thing right now because he's doing management stuff and he's going all over the place, making sure that shows and stations sound as good as they possibly can be. So whatever it is exactly that he's doing, you're just going to have to take me on my word that he's doing a good job at it. So that's all I can say. You can, however, go find him on social media if you go to Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at Jeff Hurley. And over at Instagram, he's Hurley Radio, Hurley Radio, and all other social media platforms under that handle as well. I think he's one of those guys that thinks Threads is going to become something. Like it's going to be the big thing because he posts there too. So if you want to go tell him you like the episode, go to Threads. Tell him how much you enjoyed him on Erik Nagel's Radio Inquisition. Now, to wrap all this up, thanks going out to iHeartRadio, iHeartMedia, Lon Friend, Shadow Steel, legendary DJs from the Los Angeles area, Jams Jingles, and of course, John Feldman from Goldfinger for the radio song that we use. For more episodes of the Radio Inquisition, subscribe to the It's Erik Nagel Show feed on the iHeartRadio app, Apple, Spotify, wherever you're getting your podcasts and things on demand. Also, if you could, go over to at It's Erik Nagel on YouTube for the video versions of the Radio Inquisition and the other shows that I do. It can all be found there. So do us a kindness, hit the subscribe button if you could, and I think that's it. So until the next time, everybody, be seen.
This has been Erik Nagel's Radio Inquisition. It was the greatest gift, and he wanted other people to experience it. Follow on all the social media platforms at It's Erik Nagel. For audio video links to this and other episodes, go to itseriknagel.com.